On the far edge of explored space, where stars grew thin and silence stretched like an endless ocean, the science vessel Aurora Dawn drifted near a gray, cratered moon called Kalis 7. The ship was small by military standards but packed with sensors, labs, and a crew trained for peaceful contact. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the observation deck, arms crossed, watching the moon's surface through thick, transparent plating. He wasn't a soldier. He was a scientist who'd traded equations for command when Earth's Deep Space Initiative needed steady hands. Beside him stood Lisa Grant, the ship's xenolinguist, her dark hair pulled back, eyes sharp behind thin glasses. She held a datapad showing strange energy readings from the moon's far side. They hadn't come looking for trouble. They'd come because Kalis 7 sat near the boundary of human-mapped space, a quiet place to test long-range scanners. But 3 days ago, something unexpected happened. A signal, not human, not machine-made in any known way, had pulsed from the moon. It wasn't a message in code or language. It was a tone repeating every 17 minutes, calm and steady like a heartbeat. Brooks ordered a cautious approach. Now they waited. The signal changed that morning. Instead of the tone, it spoke. Not in English, not in any Earth language, but in a series of harmonic chimes that Lisa's translation software slowly began to unpack. It said only one thing: come. We mean no harm. Brooks hesitated. First contact protocols were strict, but this felt different. No weapons detected, no fleet hiding in the asteroid belt, just one voice alone asking them to listen. He gave the order to send a shuttle. Lisa went down with 2 security officers, though she insisted she didn't need them. The moon's surface was cold and still, dust swirling in slow motion under the shuttle's thrusters. Waiting for them, standing in the open with no shelter, no armor, was a tall being. Its skin shimmered like polished stone, eyes large and silver reflecting the distant sun. It wore simple robes that moved without wind. This was Orlan, the last seer of the Velari. Through a handheld translator, Orlan spoke slowly, each word carefully chosen. He explained that his people had once been many, spread across a dozen star systems. Now they were few, hiding in forgotten corners of the galaxy. He said they had watched humanity for years, not with fear but with sorrow. You are young, he told Lisa, his voice soft through the device, full of fire and hope. But fire can burn your own hands if you do not learn when to let it rest. Lisa asked why he reached out now. Orlan turned his silver eyes toward the stars as if seeing something far beyond them. Because your leaders speak of war, he said. They see shadows and call them enemies. They plan to strike before being struck. This is the path we walked long ago, and it led only to ruin. He told them of the Korath, a species older than humanity, vast and disciplined, driven by a single belief. Any civilization that attacks first must be erased completely, for such a species cannot be trusted to keep peace. The Velari had once destroyed a Korath scout ship, thinking it a threat. In response, the Korath came not with warnings, but with fire. World after world fell. The Velari were hunted like animals. Orlan's people had survived only by vanishing, by becoming ghosts in the dark. You must not do what we did, Orlan urged, his voice trembling slightly. If you attack first, they'll never stop. Not until your cities are dust, your children gone, your name forgotten. They do not hate. They simply obey their law. And their law is absolute. Lisa recorded every word. She asked if there was any way to avoid this fate. Orlan nodded slowly. Do not strike, wait, watch, speak before you shoot. Even silence is better than violence begun in fear. Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, Brooks listened to the full report in his quarters. He paced the small room, jaw tight. He believed Orlan. There was no deception in the old alien's eyes, only grief and warning. He sent the recording and full logs to Earth Command with a personal note. This is not a threat. It is a plea. Do not ignore it. But Earth was already moving. In the months before, human colonies near the Helios Rift had reported strange ships, sleek, black, silent, observing from a distance. No attacks, no signals. Just watching. Military analysts called them scouts. Politicians called them invaders waiting to pounce. General Paul Dawson, head of Earth's strategic defense, had been pushing for a show of force for weeks. Better to hit them while they're weak, he'd told the Senate. Let them know we're not prey. Brooks's message arrived too late. Or perhaps it arrived exactly when it was meant to, and was still ignored. Within days, Earth Command issued orders for Operation Silent Dagger, A strike team would destroy the suspected Korath outpost near the Helios Rift. No warning, no negotiation. Just precision fire from stealth corvettes under Colonel Rick Malone, a veteran known for clean, brutal efficiency. Lisa tried to protest. She sent follow-up messages citing Orland's warning, begging for delay. Her emails vanished into bureaucracy. Brooks requested a hearing. He was denied. Science doesn't set policy, came the reply. Security does. The Aurora Dawn was ordered to return to lunar orbit for debriefing. As they left Kalis 7 behind, Lisa looked out the viewport one last time. She thought she saw a lone figure standing on the gray surface watching them go. She wondered if Orland knew what was coming. Back on Earth, the news of the upcoming strike was kept secret, but rumors spread. People celebrated in the streets when the operation was finally announced as a success. Humanity strikes first and wins, declared headlines. Colonel Malone became a hero overnight. Footage showed the Korath outpost exploding in silent fire, debris scattering into the void. But Lisa didn't celebrate. She sat alone in her apartment in New Seattle, rain tapping the window, staring at the official report. Something felt wrong. The Korath hadn't fought back. No defenses activated, no distress calls, just silence before and after. It was too easy, too clean. That night she received a private message routed through an old Velari frequency. It was short, just a line of translated text. You have lit the fuse. Now the fire will burn until nothing remains. She showed it to Brooks the next morning. He read it once, then again, his face pale. They're coming, he whispered. And far beyond the edge of human space, in the cold dark between stars, something vast began to move. The victory celebration lasted 3 days. Earth's news channels played the same clip over and over. The Korath outpost vanishing in a flash of light. Colonel Rick Malone standing tall in his uniform. General Paul Dawson declaring that humanity had drawn a line in the stars. People waved flags. Children wore toy helmets, and politicians promised a new age of safety. But Lisa Grant did not join them. She sat in her small office at the Lunar Research Hub, staring at silent data streams. Something was wrong. The Korath had not responded. Not with anger, not with panic, not even with static. Just silence. And silence, she knew, could be the loudest warning of all. Colonel Malone returned a hero. He gave interviews, accepted medals, and assured everyone the Korath were weak. Just scouts, not warriors. We hit them before they could blink, he said with a grin. But in private, over a quiet drink with Captain Daniel Brooks, Malone's smile faded. It felt off, he admitted, swirling his glass. No weapons, no shields. Just workers, engineers maybe. Like we bombed a factory full of people who never saw us coming. Brooks didn't reply. He just nodded, his eyes distant. Back on Kalis 7, the Velari had gone silent. No signals. No contact. Lisa tried every frequency, every code Orland had shared. Nothing answered. It was as if the moon had swallowed them whole. She sent a formal request to visit again, but Earth Command denied it. No resources for ghost chasing, read the reply. Focus on real threats. Then, 2 weeks after the strike, the first colony vanished. It was Proxima Outpost Gamma, a mining settlement on a rocky moon near the Helios Rift. Home to 1-200 people. Routine check-ins stopped. Scans showed no debris, no explosions. Just empty buildings, cold reactors, and silence. Rescue ships found nothing but drifting shuttles and open doors. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Earth Command called it a system failure. Maybe a solar flare knocked out comms. But Lisa knew better. She pulled old Velari archives, cross-referencing with Korath behavior patterns. The Velari records described something similar. Entire cities emptied in hours, not by bombs, but by precision extraction. The Korath didn't just destroy. They erased. Then came the second disappearance. Then the third. Within a month, 5 human outposts had fallen silent. Panic began to spread. Malone was sent back out, this time with a full battle group. Find them. Stop them, General Dawson ordered. Show them we're not afraid. Malone's fleet reached the edge of the Centauri belt when the Korath struck. It wasn't a battle. It was slaughter. Korath ships emerged from folds in space, black, smooth, shaped like blades. They moved without sound, without warning. Human sensors barely registered them before weapons fired. Not lasers, not missiles. Something worse. Beams that didn't burn. They unraveled matter, turning steel and flesh into fine gray dust in seconds. Malone's lead destroyer vanished before it could fire a single shot. His corvettes scattered, but the Korath were faster, smarter, everywhere at once. Malone barely escaped in a damaged escape pod. He drifted for 2 days before rescue found him, half dead, whispering one word over and over: never stop. On Earth, the mood shifted fast. The flags came down. The speeches stopped. Emergency broadcasts replaced entertainment channels. People stocked shelters. Mars declared martial law. Titan's orbital docks shut down. The Korath weren't retaliating, they were cleansing, and they showed no sign of slowing. Lisa was pulled into emergency strategy meetings. She argued for communication, for sending a peace signal, for reaching out through Velari channels. But General Dawson cut her off. "We don't beg," he snapped. "We fight." He ordered the activation of Project Iron Wall, a network of orbital defense platforms armed with experimental plasma cannons. Earth would not fall without a fight. Captain Brooks, reinstated as a tactical advisor, watched the war room maps turn red with losses. He asked one question no one wanted to answer. What if they don't care about our weapons? What if they only care that we struck first? No one replied. Lisa worked late into the nights, digging deeper into the Velari data. She found a fragment Orlan had hidden in a music file, a voice recording barely audible. "The Korath do not hate," it said. "They remember, and memory for them is law. To attack first is to declare yourself a threat to all life. They will not rest until that threat is gone. Not out of rage. Out of duty." She played it for Brooks. He listened in silence, then said, "We didn't just start a war. We signed our own death warrant." Meanwhile, the Korath advanced. They bypassed heavily armed systems, targeting only civilian hubs. Farms on Ceres, schools on Ganymede, hospitals on Europa. They left military bases untouched, as if to say, "We are not your enemy. You made us your end." Colonel Malone, recovering in a med bay on Luna, requested to speak with Lisa. His face was pale, his arm in a cast. "I thought I was protecting us," he said, voice rough. "But I lit a match in a room full of gas." He handed her a data chip. "This is everything I saw. Their ships. They didn't fire randomly. They moved like they knew exactly where everyone was. Like they'd been watching us longer than we watched them." Lisa took the chip. That night she found something chilling. The Korath had been mapping human colonies for years, not as invaders but as observers. They knew birth rates, power grids, supply routes. They hadn't come to conquer. They'd come to judge. And humanity had failed the test the moment it fired the first shot. Earth's leaders still refused to admit fault. "We cannot show weakness," President Elena Ruiz told the world in a trembling broadcast. "We stand firm." But firmness meant nothing against an enemy that did not negotiate, did not tire, did not stop. One evening, as Lisa walked home through the quiet streets of New Seattle, she looked up at the sky. The stars seemed colder now, closer. She thought of Orlan, alone on that gray moon, knowing what was coming and powerless to stop it. She thought of the children in Proxima Gamma, gone without a scream. And she wondered if anyone would ever listen before it was too late. Then her comm chimed. A secure message from an unknown source. She opened it. Just one line in plain text. "You have lit the fuse. Now the fire will burn until nothing remains." It was the same message as before, but this time it felt like a countdown, and somewhere far away in the endless dark the Korath kept coming. The Korath did not rush. They moved like a tide, slow, steady, and certain. One by one, human colonies fell silent, not with explosions, not with battles, but with quiet emptiness. Entire cities stood intact, lights still on, food still warm on tables, but no people. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just absence. Earth scientists called it clean extraction. The public called it horror. The military had no name for it because they could not fight it. Mars was the first major world to go dark. Not all at once, but sector by sector. The Korath ships hovered over the red planet like shadows, cutting off comms, disabling defenses without firing a single shot. Then over 3 nights they took everyone. Millions vanished. The orbital defense platforms, Project Iron Wall, never even activated. The Korath bypassed them as if they were toys. General Paul Dawson stood in the war room on Earth, watching the feeds die one by one, his face gray. He had promised safety. He had promised strength. Now he had nothing but silence. Lisa Grant sat in a dimly lit bunker beneath Geneva, surrounded by stolen data and half-empty coffee cups. She wasn't supposed to be there. Officially, she'd been reassigned to historical analysis, a polite way of saying she was no longer trusted. But a few sympathetic officers slipped her access codes. She worked with a small group of scientists, diplomats, and former Velari researchers who believed the only way out was not through weapons, but through understanding. They called themselves the Quiet Circle. No one outside knew they existed. From old Velari texts and fragments of Korath signal patterns, Lisa pieced together a terrifying truth. The Korath didn't see war the way humans did. For them, violence was not a tool, it was a verdict. And the verdict had already been passed the moment Earth launched Operation Silent Dagger. To strike first was to prove you were a species that could not be trusted with existence. The Korath weren't invading. They were enforcing a cosmic law older than human history, and they would not stop until humanity was gone. Not out of cruelty, but out of duty. Colonel Rick Malone, now walking with a limp and a haunted look in his eyes, joined the Quiet Circle in secret. He brought first-hand data from the few ships that had survived the early attacks. They don't target soldiers, he told Lisa one night, voice low. They avoid military zones unless provoked. But the moment we fire, they erase everything within 1,000 kilometers. It's like they give us a chance to stay quiet. And we keep failing. Captain Daniel Brooks, grounded after publicly criticizing Earth Command, was placed under house arrest. But he still found ways to help. Through coded messages, he sent Lisa coordinates to a hidden Velari archive buried in an old deep space probe. Inside, she found records of other species that had made the same mistake as humanity. Dozens of civilizations, all gone, all because they struck first. Back on Earth, panic turned to despair. Food shortages began. Power grids flickered as engineers disappeared from key stations. People stopped going outside. Children were taught to hide, not to play. President Elena Ruiz gave daily speeches, each one weaker than the last. We will endure, she said, but her voice shook. No one believed her anymore. Then came the attack on Luna. The moon had been humanity's fortress, home to shipyards, command centers, and over 2 million people. The Korath arrived without warning. Not with fire, but with silence. Their ships formed a ring around the moon, blocking all exits. Then over 12 hours, they took everyone. Not by force, by choice. Survivors later reported that the Korath broadcast a single message in every human language. Lay down your arms. Come peacefully. You will not be harmed. Most did. Those who resisted, soldiers, militia, a few desperate families, were not killed. They were simply removed. Their buildings turned to dust. The rest were taken away in silent transports, destination unknown. Earth watched it happen on live feeds until the signal cut out. That night, riots broke out in every major city, not for food or water, but for answers. People demanded to know why this was happening, why the Korath wouldn't talk, why Earth's leaders had lied. In the chaos, Lisa and the Quiet Circle made a breakthrough. They found a pattern in the Korath's movements. They always left one thing behind, a small, smooth stone, black as space, placed gently on the ground where the last person had stood. At first, it seemed like a marker, but Lisa realized it was a message. In ancient Velari tradition, such stones meant the debt is noted. It wasn't a threat. It was a record. She brought this to Colonel Malone. They're not just erasing us, she said. They're documenting our end, like we were a lesson for others. Malone stared at the stone she'd smuggled from a ruined colony. Then how do we stop it? He asked. There's only one way, Lisa said. We stop attacking completely, no weapons. No resistance, just stillness, but Earth Command would never agree. General Dawson still believed in one final strike, a secret fleet being built in the Oort cloud, armed with gravity bombs that could tear a ship apart from the inside. We'll hit their command vessel, he told the president. End this in one blow. Lisa knew it would be the final mistake. If they fired again, even in desperation, the Korath would not just take Earth, they would burn it from orbit, turn the planet into glass, and no one would ever know humanity had once dreamed of stars. Captain Brooks, still under watch, managed to send one last message to Lisa. It was short. Find the Velari. They knew this would happen. Maybe they also knew how it ends. That night, Lisa made a decision. She would go back to Kalis 7, alone, no military escort, no weapons, just a shuttle, a translator, and hope. If Orlan's people were still there, they might hold the only key to survival. Not a weapon, not a trick, but a way to say sorry in a language the Korath would understand. As she prepared to leave, alarms blared across Earth. The Korath armada had entered the Sol system. Not in pieces, all at once. Hundreds of ships, dark and silent, forming a wall between Earth and the sun. They were ready to finish what humanity had started. And Lisa knew time was running out. The sky over Earth turned dark not from clouds but from ships. Hundreds of them, black and smooth, hanging in silence between the planet and the sun. Day became twilight. People looked up and saw not stars but death waiting. Earth's last defenses powered up. Missile silos, orbital cannons, fighter squadrons, but no one fired. They knew it would not help. Firing would only make the end faster, cleaner, more final. General Paul Dawson stood on the command deck, hand hovering over the launch key, but he did not press it. For the first time, he understood. Strength had failed. Only stillness remained. Lisa Grant did not wait for permission. She stole a small science shuttle from a nearly abandoned lunar dock, its hull patched with old repairs, its engines whisper quiet. No weapons. No military codes. Just a pilot's seat, a navigation screen, and a single passenger compartment. She wore no uniform, only a simple gray suit and the black stone she'd taken from the ruins of Luna. In her pocket was a data chip with every word Orlan had ever spoken, translated, recorded, and saved. She set course for Kalis 7. The journey would take 6 days. She did not know if she would find anyone there. But it was the only hope left. Captain Daniel Brooks watched her go from a hidden monitor in his quarters. He had been released from house arrest after the Quiet Circle leaked evidence of Earth Command's secret fleet plans to the public. Riots had turned into protests, and protests into a single demand: do not fire. Brooks had used the chaos to get Lisa clearance, unofficial, untraceable, but enough to slip past the blockades. Now he could only wait and hope. The trip was long and lonely. Lisa spoke to no one. She reviewed the Velari archives again and again, searching for anything she might have missed. One phrase kept returning: the blood debt must be witnessed. She did not know what it meant, but she felt it was important. Maybe the Korath needed to see humanity admit its crime. Not in secret, not in shame, but openly, clearly, without weapons or tricks. When she reached Kalis 7, the moon looked the same, gray, quiet, empty. But as her shuttle descended, a soft light appeared in the distance. Not a signal, not a weapon, just a single lantern glowing blue set on the dusty plain. She landed near it. The ramp lowered. Cold air rushed in, and there, standing alone, was a young Velari woman. Her eyes were silver like Orlan's, but softer. She wore simple robes, and in her hands she held a staff topped with a crystal that hummed faintly. Lisa stepped forward. "I'm looking for Orlan," she said, her voice thin in the thin air. "He is gone," the Velari replied, her voice clear through the translator Lisa carried. "He passed into the deep silence 3 cycles ago. I am Sira, his apprentice." Lisa's heart sank. But Sira stepped closer. "He knew you would come. He left words for you." In a small cave nearby, lit by soft bioluminescent moss, Sira showed Lisa a wall covered in symbols. Not writing, not art, a ritual map. She explained that the Velari had once tried to beg the Korath for mercy after their first strike. They sent envoys, gifts, even surrendered their leaders. But the Korath refused. Their law allowed no exceptions. Then centuries later, another species, the Taeli, faced the same fate. But instead of fighting or begging, their leader did something strange. He flew alone to the Korath command ship, unarmed, and spoke a single sentence. "We were wrong to strike first. We will never do it again." He offered no excuses, no demands, just truth. The Korath paused. Then, after a long silence, they left. The Taeli were spared. "The words must be spoken by one of the guilty," Sira said. "Not a machine. Not a recording. A living voice standing where the crime began. And it must be witnessed by neutral eyes like mine." Lisa understood. Earth had to send someone to the Korath fleet and say those words. Not as a trick, not as a delay, but as a promise. And that someone had to go alone with nothing but their voice. But who would do that? Lisa asked. "They'd be killed before they got close." Sira shook her head. "The Korath do not kill messengers. They only judge those who fight. If you go in peace, they will listen. But if you carry even one weapon, even one lie in your heart, they will know. Lisa thought of Colonel Malone, broken but brave, of Captain Brooks, steady and wise. But she knew it had to be someone the Korath would see as a true representative of the strike. Someone tied to the first attack, and there was only one person who fit. She sent a message through a hidden channel. It reached Brooks in less than an hour. He read it once, then packed a small bag. No uniform, no rank, just a man with a mission. Back on Earth, the Korath ships had not moved. They waited, as if they knew something was coming. Brooks took a civilian shuttle from a hidden hangar in Montana. No escort, no fanfare, just him, a pilot's license, and the words he would speak. Lisa met him in orbit, transferred the final translation, and hugged him tightly. "Come back," she whispered. "I'll try," he said. He flew toward the Korath Armada, heart-pounding, hands steady on the controls. His shuttle was small, white, with no markings. As he neared the largest ship, a blade-shaped vessel longer than a city, the Korath did not fire. They did not move. They simply opened a path. His shuttle drifted into the center of their formation. All around him, black hulls loomed like mountains. He activated the comm. His voice, calm and clear, echoed across every Korath channel, translated into their harmonic language by Lisa's program. "I am Daniel Brooks of Earth," he said. "We attacked you first. We were wrong. We thought fear was strength. We were mistaken. We offer no excuses. We ask for no mercy. We only promise this: humanity will never strike first again. Not today. Not ever." He shut off the engines. Let the shuttle float. Waited. Silence. Then, slowly, the Korath ships began to power down. Lights dimmed. Weapons retracted. One by one, they turned away from Earth and began to leave. Sira, watching from a hidden Velari observer post near Jupiter, recorded it all. The debt had been witnessed. The words had been spoken, and for the first time in months the sun shone on Earth again. The Korath did not speak. They did not send a message of peace or a warning for the future. They simply left. One by one, their black ships turned away from Earth, vanishing into the deep folds of space as quietly as they had come. Within hours, the sky was clear again. Sunlight returned to the cities, weak at first, then stronger, as if the planet itself was breathing for the first time in months. People stepped outside, squinting, unsure if it was real. No alarms, no sirens, just silence, and the wind. Captain Daniel Brooks waited in his shuttle, floating alone in the empty space where the Armada had been. He expected death. He had prepared for it. But nothing came. After an hour, his comm crackled. It was Lisa Grant, her voice shaking with relief. "They're gone," she said. "All of them. You did it." He didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired, hollow. He had spoken 3 simple sentences, but they carried the weight of every life lost, every colony erased, every mistake made in fear. He guided his shuttle back toward Earth, not as a soldier returning from battle, but as a man who had asked for forgiveness and somehow been heard. On the ground, chaos turned to quiet disbelief. General Paul Dawson resigned the same day, walking out of command without a word. President Elena Ruiz addressed the world that evening, not with pride, but with shame. She admitted the truth. Earth had struck first. Earth had been wrong, and only by admitting that had they been spared. The speech was short. No excuses, no blame, just honesty. For the first time in years, people listened. Colonel Rick Malone stood in the ruins of a training base on Mars, now half buried in red dust. He had spent weeks helping survivors return, rebuilding what little could be saved. When he heard Brooks' message had worked, he sat down on a broken crate and cried. Not for the war, but for the lesson. He later joined a new civilian Peace Corps, teaching young pilots that the strongest thing a human could do was sometimes to wait. Lisa Grant became Earth's first ambassador to the Velari Concord. Sira, the young seer, stayed near the edge of human space, acting as a bridge between species. Together, they built a small station called the Still Point, a place for listening, not fighting. No weapons were allowed. No military ships, just open channels and open minds. Lisa spent her days translating not just words, but ideas, trust, patience, memory. She made sure Orland's warning was taught in every school, not as a story, but as a law of survival. Earth changed slowly. The secret fleets were scrapped. The orbital cannons were turned into solar collectors. Children learned diplomacy before tactics. New laws were passed. No human ship could fire the first shot, not even in defense, without full council approval and public record. It wasn't perfect. Old fears still whispered in the dark. But the memory of the Korath kept them quiet. Brooks returned to Montana, to a small house near a lake he'd loved as a boy. He grew vegetables, fixed old radios, and walked the hills at dawn. Reporters came sometimes asking for interviews, but he always said no. He didn't want to be remembered as the man who saved Earth. He wanted to be forgotten so the lesson would stand on its own. But once a year, on the anniversary of the silence, he would stand on his porch and look up at the stars, not with fear, not with hope, just with respect. Years passed. Colonies were rebuilt. Mars bloomed with greenhouses. Titan's docks hummed again with trade ships, not warships. Humanity reached out not with weapons but with open hands. They met new species, shared knowledge, and always waited for the other side to speak first. The Korath were never seen again. Some said they watched from afar. Others said they had moved on to other corners of the galaxy, their duty done. No one knew for sure, and no one dared to test it. In the Lunar Academy, where future diplomats trained, there was a simple stone placed in the main hall. Black, smooth, cold to the touch. New students were required to place their hand on it and repeat one sentence before they graduated. If you attack first, they'll never stop. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise, to themselves, to each other, to the stars. Lisa visited Brooks once, years later. She found him sitting by the lake feeding bread to ducks. She didn't talk about politics or treaties. They just sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she said, "Do you think they're watching us still?" He looked at the water, then at the sky. "I hope so," he said, "because we're trying." And that was enough. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders. But humanity had learned the hardest truth. Strength was not in the fist, but in the choice not to use it. The alien seer had spoken. And he was right.